Right, very good afternoon to all of you. It's match number 24 of the IPL. It's the hapless looking Kings 11 Punjab taking on the very lucky Kolkata Knight Riders. This game will be played in Abu Dhabi. You're watching Whirlpool presents ESPN Cricket for T20 timeout powered by Dell. And joining us from about 4,500 miles away, sitting in his air-conditioned villa in Perth, is Tom Moody. Now, Tom, while you're the only expert on today's show, you did ask for a bit of variety on the show, and you're going to have to bear with me, manage with me over the next 20 minutes. You asked for it.
More than happy to have that. Thank you, Manish, and looking forward to it. I don't have the air conditioning going on here, but yes, I'm lucky enough to be in Perth.
Right, of course, the irrepressible Rona Kapoor will be in action right here in this chair a little later today. Remember, it's a double header. But for now, it's Kings 11 versus KKR. The Knight Riders, 3 wins, 2 losses so far at number 4 in the points table. Now, the last time they took the park, they won a game that Chennai should have won, but then bizarre things happen in this format all the time. It's an afternoon game in Abu Dhabi. Now, the weather apps say the current temperature is about 34, 35 degrees. But, Tom, I'm sure the Kings 11 Punjab are feeling the heat a lot more. They seem to have lost their mojo, their way, and 4 games in the process and are at the bottom of the table. And it'll take some serious effort from Anil Kumble's troops to turn things around. No one wants to be in Anil Kumble's chair at this point.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting situation because I sort of see these teams very similar in the way that their seasons have gone. Obviously, KKR have found themselves with more wins, but they've manufactured those wins. You know, it's not like they have dominated and they have clearly won a lot of those games, where Kings 11 have, right from the get-go, have been unlucky. I think there's a couple of games early on they could have easily have won, which should, certainly could have changed their fortunes in the early parts of this tournament. But, I see this as a very even contest, even though that if you look at the table, you would imagine or expect that KKR, are the favourites. But I still feel that Kings 11 are a threat.
But they are approaching the halfway mark, and this is where teams have got to get going, because if not now, it might be a case of not many games left. And Kings 11 Punjab, therefore, feeling the heat a lot more, aren't they?
Oh, without a question, and that's when a team is dangerous, particularly a team that's got the quality that Kings 11 have got. They're a team that you want to avoid at this stage of the tournament if you're doing okay as a team, because that they're far better side than what the scoreboard or what the table tells you. So you can guarantee, whether it be KKR tonight or other teams going down into throughout the rest of this tournament, will in a way sort of hesitate when they play Kings 11, because they know that they're a far better side than what they have shown so far.
Right, a quick update of the toss. Dinesh Karthik won the toss, and KKR will be batting first. On what looks like a dry pitch, Ian Bishop did say that the slower bowlers will have a greater impact. Win toss, bat first, good for you?
Yeah, look, I think runs on the board is always important. And what we've seen so far in this IPL is the teams that do bat first tend to have a better outcome. I don't know why that is, because, if you look at the history of T20 over the last, let's say 5 years, it's nearly the reverse. It's teams chasing have always had the advantage. But for some reason this year in the UAE, it's the teams batting first with runs on the board have proven to be quite difficult to beat.
Right. Just a quick update of the teams as well. One change each for both sides. Prasidh Krishna comes in for Shivam Mavi for the Kolkata Knight Riders, a 24-year-old right-arm medium pacer, quite tall, 6'2", so they might expect him to get some help off the pitch. Replaced Shivam Mavi in 2018 as well, came into the side, and today has replaced him again in this lineup. Kings 11 Punjab have made one change. Jordan in for Cottrell, who is injured. But the bigger news is, we'll come to Kings 11 Punjab in just a bit. Yes, there it is. No Chris Gale. Looks like the stomach bug continues to trouble Gale, and therefore Punjab.
Yeah, well, Anil Kumble did mention in the last game, during the game in an interview, that Chris Gale was scheduled to play, which was big news, because a lot of people have been asking about Chris Gale and whether he should be in this side or not, which is inevitable, particularly given Kings 11 have had the the misfortune that they've had and not had the wins that they would have liked. But clearly Gale is still recovering from that stomach bug. And it's a difficult one because, Gale comes into the side. You're then breaking up one of the better opening partnerships that the tournament has in both Rahul and Agarwal. So, where do the pieces move? Does Rahul move to number 3 if Gale comes in? It's certainly not going to be this game, but it is a challenge for Kings 11 trying to fit those overseas players. Jordan, it's no surprise to see Jordan back in the side because I did notice that Sheldon Cottrell, I think it may be a leg or a groin injury. I just was watching that game, the last game they played, and he did sort of wince when he did turn very quickly after delivering a ball, and I think it may be a groin injury. Let's hope it's nothing too serious, but it's a great opportunity for Chris Jordan to step up and play his role. And in a way, it's helped Kings 11 because he'll add a little bit of depth to their batting.
Right. Also, we'll come to Jordan in a bit, but no Chris Gale in. We don't know if it's about his stomach bug or if it's a tactical call, but is it also in a way a message to Glenn Maxwell saying, buddy, one more game?
Look, I don't think so. I think, Glenn Maxwell knows he's probably, on his last legs. So far he's had for his standards, has had a poor IPL, and he'll be fully aware of that. It's never easy, coming in the middle order, and that's not making any excuses for him. But he's yet to really grasp his opportunity, which is surprising because he's come into this tournament having played cricket in England when Australia met England in both an ODI and a T20 series, did well, scored 100 coming into the IPL. So everyone sort of had the view that this could be Maxwell's IPL, but so far it's been far from that. And certainly from Kings 11's fans' point of view and also Glenn Maxwell's point of view, that let's hope he turns that around tonight.
Right. Looks like they've decided to move on from that 30-run over that Jordan bowled, and they've tried to address their death bowling concerns. They do have Shami and Mujib for the power play. Look, is that what they're thinking right now, saying, all right, we need Jordan for at least 2 of the last 4, and we will look at Shami and Mujib for the first 6?
Yeah, well, the obvious new ball combination is Mujib and Shami. Mujib's a specialist in that phase. Mohammad Shami is world-class fast bowler that does enjoy the new ball, so that's a very potent combination. Jordan does give them the ability to have a more of a, I suppose, specialist finisher. So you can guarantee that Rahul will be keeping 2 of his overs up his sleeve for the back end of the innings, and probably Jordan will bowl 1 in the power play and 1 in the middle of the game.
Right, let's talk a bit about something that's gone wrong with Rahul's batting. He has scored runs. Remember, he scored that whirlwind 132. And thereafter, he seems to have slowed down. Is it a case of too much going on between the 2 ears? If you look at his strike rate, it's dropped from 170 to about 130. Mayank Agarwal has been among the runs as well. But is it more of what's happening in his head that the strike rate has gone down? Is he feeling the pressure of the team not winning and therefore wanting to bat long? What's happening with Rahul?
Well, put it this way. If Rahul or any batsman for that matter is averaging 62 with a strike rate of 136.68, I'd be delighted. I'd be doing cartwheels and handstands. I think, to be honest with you, I think the whole pressure on Rahul with regards to him as the batsman is unnecessary. I think he is a world-class T20 batsman. He's shown that. I think one thing that Rahul, the mistake he made, which it's crazy saying this, was making such a brilliant and probably arguably one of the innings of this IPL when he made that 130, because then suddenly the expectations from people like us and the fans out there are thinking, well, why isn't he doing this every single game? Well, it doesn't work like that. The game doesn't work like that. Rahul, he's averaging well above 50 into the 60s. His strike rate is healthy. What he needs is his team to pull the weight. You can't sort of put all the pressure on Rahul. You look, he's new to captaincy. He's under pressure with that role as captain, but he's got some very good support as well. He's got a brilliant coach in Anil Kumbale, a brilliant assistant coach in Andy Flower, and I'm sure they're advising him and guiding him as best they possibly can. I personally feel the heat needs to come off him because he's doing everything he can do. It's not like he hasn't got a strike rate above 100. It's not like he's not averaging above 20 or 30. He's one of the leading run scorers of the tournament. Give him a break.
Right. Tom, very often teams are judged by how they use their resources. Now, if you look at Rajasthan Royals in the first season, it seems like ages ago, they used their available resources well. But would you, as an analyst, also look at how many of those resources have Kings 11 used? Because they've used more number of players than all other teams put together. They've used 18 players so far in 6 matches. Do you look at that as impatience or as readiness to be flexible when things aren't going well?
Well, this is a really interesting point that you raise, and with the discussion and the chat that we've just had around KL Rahul, this to me is the problem, not KL Rahul. This is the problem. How can you possibly play so many players in just 6 matches without having the injuries or issues that you possibly may have? Hyderabad, for instance, in second place with 17. They've had numerous injuries, which has affected their campaign to this point, where Kings 11 haven't had the same sort of challenges and issues with regards to their injuries. So to me, that really pinpoints the issue with regards to the whole situation at Kings 11 and the insecurity around that squad and that playing 11. Am I playing this game? Aren't I playing this game? If I get it right today, I'm going to be in for the next game. You don't want that sort of that uncertainty within a playing environment. You want that security more than anything else, where we're backing you regardless of how today goes. We're backing you 100%, and we're going to try to keep some sort of continuity within the playing 11. The best example historically in the IPL in this situation is Chennai Super Kings and Mumbai Indians.
Right. Tom, while team changes, etc., can be a function of multiple factors, injuries, conditions, etc. In a tournament with 14 league games per team, how many games is an optimum number by which a team must be able to figure their first go-to ideal 11?
Oh, look, again, I think, put it this way, I think over a campaign, you don't want to be using any more between 16 and 18 players over a whole campaign of 14 games. So we've just seen 17 being used already in 6 games for Kings 11, which is a disturbing sort of turnover of players. I believe you need a little bit of flexibility because 1, the opponents you're playing against, 2, you've got to understand there may be some injury challenges that you may have. And 3, the conditions you play in. You may go from one venue to the next where it may be slow, it starts to turn. Therefore, you may play an extra spinner, or if not 2 spinners. So there's various different variables. So I think the important thing is to recognise is that 1, you don't want too much traffic going on within that playing 11, and you want to try to keep some stability. But secondly, you need to recognise that at times you need horses for courses.
Right. The other side is, of course, if the players don't perform as a unit, there's only that much that the management or the support staff can do. Anil Kumble can't go in and bowl in the death overs. Now, I remember it was in 2014, I think, when Mumbai Indians couldn't do a thing right in the UAE. And as soon as the tournament moved back home, they started winning and managed to make it to the playoffs. Is the issue with Punjab just performance? Is it resources? And what are the realistic chances of them making it to the top 4? I mean, they do have the requisite number of games left, but do you really think they have a chance of turning it around?
I think their chances are, to be honest with you, I think are very slim. Yes, mathematically they can make it. There's no question of that. I think their chances are slim, though. I think one of the issues that they face is the fact that, and it's one thing they tried to address in the auction, and that is their lack of depth of quality of their fast bowling and defensive bowling, more importantly, because there's 2 different aspects of pace bowling. or bowling period. And that is, you've got bowlers that are your offensive bowlers and your bowlers that are defensive bowlers. An example of that is Cottrell is an offense bowler. He's a wicket taker. He's got a great record with taking wickets in the power play, where Jordan historically has got a very good defensive record, where he's recognised to be able to shut down the opposition, particularly at the back end of the innings. It was certainly something they were concerned about in the auction, and it's certainly something they tried to address, but that's been an issue for them in this tournament, is their bowling has looked vulnerable, it's looked weak. When you've got two of the leading run scorers so far in the tournament in Agarwal and Rahul, you can't point the finger at the batting. The batting is doing the heavy lifting. What's not working for them is their bowling. Whether they can turn that around suddenly and get on a winning run and reach the top four, well, you need a crystal ball to work that out. But to me, what they went into the auction concerned about is starting to play out right now.
Right. You've been there in the hot seat, Tom, with an IPL franchise. If you were coach at Kings 11, what would you do? How would you pull this team out of the rut?
Well, it's very difficult. It's a bit like what you said. Anil Kumble can't go out there and bowl the death overs, or can't come in and bowl in the middle of the innings or the beginning of the innings. From a coaching perspective, there's only so much you can do. What you try to do is firstly create the best balanced squad that you possibly can do through the auction process. Second thing you can do is then, when you bring the team together, is create the best positive high performance culture that you can possibly do. And then thirdly, you try to create an environment where players feel comfortable they can play with freedom without the fear of being dropped or being criticised. And I think the third part of what I've just said there is probably the challenge that Kings 11 have had, is that, and that is reflected with the number of team changes they've had, in that they've got a number of players that are uncertain with their roles, it appears, and a number of players that are fearing failure because they know if they miss out today, they're not going to be playing tomorrow. And I think that, to me, is quite an unhealthy, environment.
Right, now, let's take a look at the Kings 11 lineup once again and talk a bit about the batting lineup. They sent Prabsimran in up the order before Pooran. Were they trying to be too creative? Was it a desperate move? Do you think they should go with that same plan, or send Pooran up, give Maxwell a few more overs? Mandeep played a cameo as well in that first game he played. Is Mandeep a candidate for number 3? How would you have your top 6 in this game for Punjab?
To me, it's very simple. I look at that top 6 and I ask the question, in the middle order there, historically, who are the 2 most dangerous players? And the standout names are both Pooran and Maxwell. And a lot of people are probably shouting down at us or me making that comment. But historically, what Maxwell has done in T20 cricket is up there amongst the best. What he's done in the IPL so far has been very poor. But at the end of the day, for you to dig your side out of a run, you've got to back quality. And to me, the 2 quality middle order players there is Pooran and Maxwell. So they're the people that I'd be leaning on to be able to help us recover our campaign. It's not a case of suddenly Maxwell coming in at number 5 or Pooran coming at number 4 and you've got 20 balls or 25 balls or 10 balls or whatever the case may be. I'm putting you up front early at 3 and 4. I want you to make a statement and really help us dig our way out of this corner that we're in.
Right. Let's now move to their opponents, the Kolkata Knight Riders. They're at number 4 in the points table now. Tom, they did take a couple of games to figure their combinations right, but this 11, of course, Prasidh Krishna is the only change. But do you think KKR have pretty much figured their go-to combination in this tournament after lots of chopping and changing?
Yeah, I think so. They obviously had their issues with regards to whether they opened the batting with Sunil Narine or not. But Tripathi has, proven that that he's a class act at the top of the order. He's shown that historically, when he's had a decent run of it, in the IPL. For some reason, over the last year and a half, he hasn't been given that regular opportunity at the top of the order. But he showed us last game that this is a player that's worth investing in, just giving him time at the top. And Narayan can slot in at any stage. We saw him slot in at number 4, which was a surprise to us. When he did come in at that position, I personally would be putting Morgan well before Narayan comes into bat. But I think they're slowly finding their way. That there's a lot of criticism around how they used or deployed their bowling options in the last game, but at the end of the day, they won the game. So it's very hard to criticise a side that even though they've done something a little bit left field with a few of their decisions and win the game, it's very hard to go back and criticise that because, well, that's your opinion and you may have gone that way, but we've gone the complete opposite way and we've still won, but we've won convincingly as well. So who's to say that you're right?
Right, now that KKR are batting first, is there a case for Morgan to be given a few more overs? He's only batted at 5 and 6 so far. They use Naren at the top, ahead of Morgan and Russell. If you look at his scores, he's got starts, he's shown some spark, he's hit the big shots. But is there a case for him to be sent at number 4 or maybe at 3 instead of Rana?
Oh, I'd have Rana at 3. There's no question of that. But Morgan, put it this way, I'd have him no later than 5. And if the top order get off to a good start, I'd be moving him into that 4th position. Owen Morgan is a journeyman. He's been around a long time. He's played his best cricket of his whole career over the last 24 months. So to me, I would be trying to expose him as early as I possibly can, so he can navigate the side. What Owen Morgan has got in spades is experience, and he's got that calm demeanour at the crease. So I'd be making sure that he gets as much time as possible at the top of the order, not the top of the order, but in that position of 4 or 5 where he can sort of guide the side to a competitive score or to close an innings.
Right. Dinesh Karthik's decisions have been fairly talked about a lot this season, whether it was the opening pair on who bats where. There's almost a social media petition on trying to get Karthik to play as the finisher. They've tried all sorts of things. Where do you see Karthik fitting into this lineup? Is he a finisher or is there a case for the captain to say, I'm going to bat up the order?
It's a really interesting question because I'd be intrigued to ask him, that is Dinesh Karthik, where he feels he is most effective for this side, even though he's captain of the side. But I'd be intrigued to hear what his answer is, because that to me will tell me exactly where he should bat and where he belongs. We know he's a quality player. We know that he's got the pressure of captaincy, but I'd love to have a deep and heartful conversation with him just around what he feels is the right thing. What positions does he feel he can have a real impact on the side to complement what's already in the side? So not to suddenly jump over an Owen Morgan or an Andre Russell, but where does he feel his best fit is within this playing 11?
Right. What happens when the captain and the coach have very different opinions? What happens then? Does the coach have the final word? How does that dynamic work between coach and captain? Say if the coach said, no, I believe you should be a finisher, and Karthik says, I might want to bat at 3 or 4 or whatever, who then takes the final call?
Well, as I've just sort of articulated, I think that conversation needs to be asking him the question. Where does he feel that he is the most effective player for this team? Given the balance of our side, given the personnel we've already got in our top 6, where does he feel that he can have the most value or add the most value to this playing 11? Understanding what's already there, but also understanding what he's feeling internally. What is he really driving for? And there's no point him sort of coming out and calling a batting position, which is clearly a position which is already occupied by one of their other stars. To me, whether it's the captain or another senior player, it's them understanding and buying into where they feel they most importantly fit within the side to make that side stronger, not just to suit their personal circumstances. It's more about what they can do to add value to that playing 11.
Right. Finally, I won't ask you for a match prediction, but the innings is about to begin. What's the score that KKR will be comfortable with, given the kind of bowling attack they have?
Yeah, I think the 170 is a mark that a lot of teams are targeting. So I think anything between that sort of 160 to 170, I think they'll feel pretty comfortable with.
Right. Thanks so much, Tom Moody. That's it then. That's our preview for this game. See you on the other side of the first 20 overs of this innings. With the mid-game show, we'll look back at the first innings with Tom Moody joining us from Perth. That's it on Whirlpool Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout. Powered by Dell.